Na 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 na.
Hey YouTube, my name is Vin. I like to play games, and welcome back to another episode of Vin Plays Yahoo Fantasy Football. This would normally be my starter show for the week. This is week 14, the first week of the fantasy playoffs. I'm not going to go over my starters this week because I was actually lucky enough to get one of the first two seeds, first two ranks in my standings. I actually finished first in the standings this year, so I am actually on bye right now. But since I will not have a matchup this week, and yeah, there go. Ergo, I will not have any starters for this week. I won't need any starters for this week. I thought it'd be a good chance to go over just some of my main competition, the teams in the playoffs that I am most concerned about facing moving forward. So let's go ahead. I'll go from the bottom up, the team that I'm least concerned about to the team that I'm most concerned about. Spoiler alert here, it goes straight down the rankings. So let's let's go ahead and start out with the first team that I'm concerned about, and that is It's Going Down. Looking at his team real quick, the first thing that stands out to me is that his number one strength is his wide receiver core. He has DeAndre Hopkins over here, Keenan Allen, and also Terry McLaurin as his starters. And I imagine that those three are permanently in his starter spots. Yeah, with the exception of Kenny Golladay. Maybe Kenny Golladay would be thrown in there depending on matchup. But the thing is, Kenny Golladay has been out for 5 or 6 weeks now. So although he does have a good matchup next week against Tennessee, and Tampa Bay isn't bad as well. But yeah, just by glancing at his team right now, his main strength looks like wide receiver. Justin Herbert at quarterback is pretty good as well. He's been kind of up and down, particularly last week with New England. Belichick has a history of shutting down quarterbacks, and that did not end with Justin Herbert. It actually continued because, yeah, Bill Belichick perfectly schemed against him and was able to shut him down last week. But looking forward, the next few matchups for him this week in Atlanta, as well as Las Vegas and Denver, those are not scary matchups. So Justin Herbert is also brings some level of concern as well. But for the most part, DeAndre Hopkins, although that team, Kyler Murray, hasn't been playing as well as earlier in the season, they could easily turn it around. Let's go ahead and look at his schedule as well real quick. Moving forward, the Giants, that's not too bad of a matchup. Philadelphia, Darius Slay is on that squad, so he'll probably be covering DeAndre Hopkins. Although Devontae Adams, we saw last time, Devontae Adams totally destroyed Darius Slay. So I'd imagine DeAndre Hopkins could do similar things with Darius Slay as well. San Francisco should be a kind of tough matchup, although San Francisco is better against the run than they are against the wide receivers. So, but DeAndre Hopkins is one of the top wide receivers in the league. Keenan Allen, that's stacked with Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen gets a ton of targets every game, so he's of concern. Terry McLaurin as well is one of the best wide receivers in the league. His weakness looks like at running back, though. Aaron Jones is super good, and we have a bunch of Packers on our squad as well, so we know how good the schedule is moving forward. Detroit, Carolina, then Tennessee. Yeah, those are really cherry matchups, so Aaron Jones is of a significant amount of concern here. But his secondary running back is kind of suspect. Right now, he has Kareem Hunt, who has been on the downturn lately. Over the last few days, he hasn't really played well, hasn't really put up much points, as you can see there, 7, 6, and 8. So not too much concern with his secondary running back. And looking at his bench, Myles Gaskins would probably be his best running back, his best secondary running back, which isn't too concerning. A solid maybe wide receiver 2, low end to mid wide receiver 2 in Myles Gaskins. His tight end is also super weak right now. Jonnu Smith was looking like he was going to have a good year to start the year, but yeah, ever since I want to say week 8, it's pretty much been regular tight end status for Jonnu Smith. If he doesn't score a touchdown, then his line isn't going to look good. But not only that, but they stopped passing to him as well. So it seems like I remember saying a few weeks ago that between him and Corey Davis, neither of them will have a good game. Will do well in the same game. Either one will do well or the other. But it looks like that instead of passing to Jonnu Smith, they're just content with giving the work to Corey Davis. So over the last few games, Jonnu Smith has gotten hardly any attempts. See, last game he didn't even get a target. So yeah, he's not getting any looks. So Jonnu Smith, tight end, is definitely a weakness for him. He does have Zach Ertz on his bench, but with that quarterback change to Jalen Hurts, Zach Ertz is typically one of Carson Wentz's favorite targets, but Carson Wentz is benched right now, so we're not even sure who's going to be the starting quarterback moving forward for that team. If Jalen Hurts ends up bombing really bad, sucking really hard this week against New Orleans, then it's very conceivable that Carson Wentz will be the starter again. So yeah, there's question marks with Zach Ertz. But yeah, it's going down. This team is of concern. He does have some very high strength in his wide receiver core, which I'm most concerned about. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next team that is concerning, which would be the drafted here. Looking at his team, his primary strength would be his running back core, at least his first two starters anyways. James Robinson has been easily a surprise top 10 running back since the beginning of the season. He is easily the Alvin Kamara of this year. Like, Alvin Kamara was someone that you drafted late or even picked up off the waiver wire really early in the season, and he just ended up being a fantastic running back to moving forward for the year. He's a league winner, and Allen Robinson and James Robinson is definitely that. Ever since the beginning, since he took over that backfield, week one basically, he's gotten all the touches, he catches passes, he performs every week. See, his floor is about 10 points every week, and he has the upside to have upwards of 30 points. So he is a very concerning player to look out for. And of course, Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook's ceiling is immeasurable. The sky's the limit for him. He put up I think close to a 50-yard game, or a 50-point game that is, against Green Bay earlier in the year. So Dalvin Cook, the only saving grace for us is that his schedule does not look great moving forward. Chicago's defense has actually gotten worse as the year progressed, particularly with that offense being as bad as it is, putting their defense in a very compromising and bad situations. But they are still pretty good pretty good defense, particularly against the run. And of course, during Week 16, championship week, he is up against the New Orleans Saints, who have, since their bye, I've heard that they've been the top defense league-wide since their bye, essentially. So that is a scary matchup for Dalvin Cook as well. But Dalvin Cook's ceiling is super high. He also has Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray hasn't looked good, and I think that's primarily because of his injury. But if he could get healthy over the next few games, he does have the Giants this week, which has been a pretty tough defense over the last few weeks. But then Philadelphia, again, they have a decent defense, but their offense is just enough to really put the pressure on the defense, and the defense really has been fatiguing over their last few games. And he is up against San Francisco, which would be a tough matchup for him as well there. But if Kyler Murray does get healthy and starts running like he did earlier in the season, then yeah, sky's the limit for Kyler Murray as well. See 43 points twice in back-to-back games earlier in the year. So Kyler Murray is of secondary concern to his running backs here. His weakness really looks like tight end and wide receiver. He does have he does have Stephon Diggs, who has been good this year, but I want to say more of a mid to high range wide receiver 2 here with Stephon Diggs. It doesn't look like he has a real wide receiver 1. Actually, he does here. He has Julio Jones, Thing is, Julio Jones has been injured, on and off injured for most of this year. But if Julio Jones comes back, he does have good matchups here. He's not playing this week, so the Chargers won't be of any concern, but Tampa Bay is a decent matchup. Actually, Kansas City is not a good matchup for Julio Jones, but you know, Julio Jones, an elite wide receiver, he is somebody to be concerned about as well. Actually, you know, with Julio and Stephon Diggs, that is a pretty decent wide receiver core there, so that is also concerning as well. Tight end is, excuse me, would be a weak spot for him. Although Robert Tonyan has been doing really well over the last few weeks, he has been scoring touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers has been throwing touchdowns to him, and you know, just like Aaron Jones and Aaron Rodgers for that matter, he does have a good schedule moving forward. So he is kind of concerning, but I'm not super concerned, especially since we have Darren Waller on our squad. Looking at his bench is really nothing to be too thrilled about. He does have Hunter Henry, who has been kind of up and down this year as well. Tom Brady is a decent secondary quarterback, but otherwise, yeah, I'm moderately concerned. I'm pretty concerned about the drafted as well. I believe his team is stronger than it's going down, but let's go ahead and jump to the team that I'm most concerned about, and that is Vaughn like Donkey Kong. I'm mostly concerned about him because he has that stack of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. And, you know, by themselves, these two players, if they explode, yeah, the ceiling for these two players, the sky is the limit. And any given week, they could both explode. That stack can explode and win the week. Any given week, they could win the week for you. So that is pretty scary. Looking at his team again, he does have Alvin Kamara, who before Drew Brees went down was the #1 running back for the year, I believe. Well, at least until Dalvin Cook scored his 50-point game anyways. But yeah, his numbers have been depressed with Taysom Hill as the starting quarterback, but Drew Brees is expected to come back during Week 15. So once Drew Brees does come back, Alvin Kamara will be super scary as a top 5 running back again. So yeah, running back is definitely his secondary strength here, and it's pretty close to the Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce stack there. At least his primary running back. His secondary running back is suspect here because he hasn't started anybody this week because he is also on bye, being the second seed in the playoffs. But looking at his squad here, Kalen Ballage, that's not somebody to be too worried about. J.D. McKissick isn't somebody to be worried about. Carlos Hyde isn't somebody to be worried about unless Chris Carson gets hurt. So right now he has a huge hole at his RB2 spot. So, and this is part of the reason why I paid up so much for J.K. Dobbins, and I was really eager to grab all those running backs, our running back depth. It's the reason why I'm holding on to what's his name? I forget his name now, but Joe Mixon's Gio Bernard. It's the reason why I'm holding on to Gio Bernard right now. Raheem Mostert as well. I'm not willing to drop because Vaughn like Donkey Kong is hurting really bad at RB2, and I do not. Anybody on my bench and anybody on my squad would be perfect as an RB2 in his lineup here. So I do not want to give up any of those guys to help give this guy more of a leg up at his running back position. Looking at his secondary running back is David Johnson then, and David Johnson actually isn't playing this week. Let's look at his schedule, and then he has Indianapolis, Cincinnati for championship week 16 is a good matchup for him though. So that is something to be a little bit concerned about. But David Johnson as your RB2, that is not super strong as well. And as far as his flex, even his wide receivers at his flex, Devontae Parker maybe, although with Tua Tagovailoa, I should say, in center as the starting quarterback, Devontae Parker's numbers has kind of nosedived with Tua at center. so I'm not too worried about Tua. Otherwise, yeah, Sammy Watkins, that's reaching joke-like territory there as well. His two starting wide receivers, though, in Calvin Ridley and Cooper Kupp, that's pretty solid. Calvin Ridley has been a top 10 wide receiver for most of this year. Cooper Kupp, probably a low-end wide receiver too. Maybe a little bit worse than Robert Woods for this year. But for the most part, the scariest thing about this team is, of course, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. They could combine, it wouldn't be surprising for them to combine for like 60 to 80 points by themselves. And if he has an explosion week like that, then it's very likely he's going to win the week. And, they could do that any given week, any given time. So that is particularly scary. So looking forward, let's go ahead and check out our team. If I was going to assess my strengths and weaknesses for my squad, I want to say that I'm pretty even throughout my entire team, and depth is probably my number one strength for my team. That's probably why I ended up with the top seed, the top record for this year, because I could roll with the punches anytime that the plague rolled around, somebody hit the plague list, or that somebody got injured. I had somebody comparable to start in their place. Depth isn't really so much of a strength during the playoffs, though. You really want your starters to shine. And my top starter is, of course, Davante Adams, who can also be, if he had a 30 to 40 point game, that wouldn't be a huge surprise as well. His ceiling is the tops. Other than that, I want to say that depth is probably our number one thing too when it comes to our starters, because we don't really have any glaring holes. You know what? Our wide receiver core probably isn't the best, probably isn't as strong as it's going down. But between Davante Adams, Allen Robinson, and Robert Woods, we do have Davante Adams is clearly the number one wide receiver. But as far as our wide receiver 2, Allen Robinson and Robert Woods are solid top 15 plays any given week, I believe. And we do have the depth, the rest of our wide receivers on our squad with Deontay Johnson and Deebo Samuel. They both, I believe, are and will be moving forward top 20 wide receivers as well. So we got that position pretty well stocked. The same thing with our running back core. Nick Chubb, he is I want to say he's a top 8 running back for our moving forward, and he probably would have been for the entire year if he didn't get hurt. But Nick Chubb isn't one of those top number one tier running backs like Dalvin Cook or Alvin Kamara. But he is strong. He is up there. I wouldn't be surprised if he finished top 6 on the year, but I want to say realistically top 8. Chris Carson is a solid wide receiver, high-end running back too. Pretty good, but still not nowhere near close to Dalvin Cook and Kamara, and even Aaron Jones for that matter, especially with the schedule going forward for Aaron Jones. But then we have Josh Jacobs as well, who is a low-end running back 1. Probably will settle into the 12 to 10 range when it comes to running backs when the year is over. So yeah, we just basically have a lot of depth at running back. Behind those guys, the rest of our running backs are pretty much top 20 running backs in Josh Jacobs, and J.K. Dobbins, that is, and DeAndre Swift. Well, when DeAndre Swift is healthy anyways. So we do have depth. Gio Bernard is droppable, is our one droppable running back, but I do want to hold on to him just because he's the number one on that squad. He probably will settle in as maybe a low-end running back 2 to mid to high-end running back 3. So not too bad right there. Another differentiator for us is Darren Waller. Darren Waller and Aaron Rodgers are pretty good. Well, Darren Waller is the number 2 tight end for the year, so he is really good. The thing is, he has really up and down games. He's not like Kelce, where his floor is super high. He bottomed out, at one point during week 3, but yeah, he does have up and down games. But his ceiling is limitless as well. He almost scored 40 points last week against the Jets. Aaron Rodgers, of course, again, he is really good. He hasn't been the top the number one top tier. Well, I want to say he's been top 4, but he hasn't had the high in the ceiling as maybe some of the other quarterbacks. Like Russell Wilson, I believe, had around a 45-point game. Patrick Mahomes had like a 45-point game. Aaron Rodgers hasn't reached quite that ceiling, but he's just been consistently super good at around 30 points for the year. So I don't foresee Aaron Rodgers losing a game, or losing a week, that is. But from this year, he's really not putting up the games that would guarantee you a win like some of the other quarterbacks have put up. But yeah, for the most part, looking at our team, I want to say that my team here, depth is the number one thing that's propelling this team. There's no clear holes. We have good players in every single starting spot. So yeah, hopefully that's enough to carry us to the championship. Let's go ahead and look at the playoff bracket right now. Me and Von like Donkey Kong, like I said earlier, we are both on bye, and It's Going Down is going up against Blue Balls, and the Drafted is going up against Dak in the Box. I am expecting It's Going Down and the Drafted to come out on top for those two matchups. And from those two, I'd probably prefer to face It's Going Down. Yeah, It's Going Down. He does have a good wide receiver core, but yeah, that secondary hole with Kareem Hunt, either Kareem Hunt or Myles Gaskins. Actually, if Myles Gaskins come back, let's look at his. Yeah, and Myles Gaskin for Week 15 against New England. That is not the greatest matchup, so I would prefer to see It's Going Down for the next round. That being said, I think that pretty much concludes this video. Thanks again so much for watching another episode of Vin Plays Yahoo Fantasy Football. My name is Vin. I like to play games, and I'll see you next time.